Communism itself is not a political economic system. It's a perverted inverse religion. It's an all-consuming ideology imposed not by free belief, but by force and indoctrination. Its churches are the labor camps, the gulags, the re-education centers. Its confession booths are torture chambers. Its priests are the censors, the propagandists, the secret police. I thought to myself that night that maybe the opposite of communism is actually faith in God. Communism seeks domination. What does faith seek? Faith seeks love. Communism seeks the obliteration of the individual on the altar of the collective. Faith seeks the dignity of the individual, the respect due to each and every one of us as a child of God. Faith seeks the elevation of man's soul, while communism seeks its abasement. The essence of Marxism is class struggle, pitting different elements of society against one another, mutual suspicion, neighbor against neighbor. Mao took this to a new level with his doctrine of continuous revolution. This was ever escalating purges of those deemed counter-revolutionary, which even led to hundreds of rightists being literally eaten by crazed Maoists during the Cultural Revolution. I heard a story recently from a young man that came into contact with the committee who was a graduate student from the People's Republic of China. And he was a quiet opponent of the regime. And when I asked why he opposed the Chinese Communist Party, he answered simply. He said, because I have faith. And he didn't mean faith in democracy or faith in the future, though he may well have had faith in those things too. He meant faith in God. And he was eager to explain why, in his view, the regime was so bent on destroying faith. If they can stamp out our belief in anything greater, he said, life becomes nothing more than the incentives of the party that it can offer and the punishments it can deliver. That is the goal of the Chinese Communist Party. Reduce men and women to flesh and bones, simple tools to use to fulfill party objectives, sacrificed or disposed of at will. Because for that entity, a proudly Marxist-Leninist regime that sees itself as Stalin's rightful heir, you heard that right, Stalin, individuals do not have inherent worth. Chairman Mao famously remarked, I'm not afraid of nuclear war. China has a population of 600 million. Even if half of them are killed, there are still 300 million people left. That's a statement that's unthinkable in most of our countries. But the party does not exist to serve the people exist to serve the party, even if only as cannon fodder. That's why they spend more on internal security than on their military. That's why they have such a pervasive censorship system. And that's why, as this young Chinese man explained, and the CCP is desperate to crush religion. Because the very concept of an individual with dignity and worth must be destroyed. And religion is its most vehement defender. So for decades, they've tried mightily, desperately to destroy belief in God entirely. They've famously imprisoned believers in mass. They've tortured them. They've sent millions of Uyghurs, Falun Gong, and other religious minorities to re-education camps. There's a genocide active underway in Xinjiang province, the largest internment of an ethno-religious minority since the Holocaust. They've destroyed Buddhist statues, they've bulldozed monasteries, they've destroyed mosques and churches, they've used artillery to shell holy sites in Lhasa and tried to kill the Dalai Lama. They've ripped millions of Tibetan children from their parents, many as young as 3 years old, and sent them to colonial boarding schools in order to destroy their faith and sense of self.
有一家中共國嘅公司要喺我哋嘅選區建立一家電動車電池廠，作為項目嘅一部分，佢哋計劃引入20到50名中國公民到密西根州。你覺得呢啲人喺美國嘅期間為中共從事間諜活動嘅可能性有幾大呢？
我認為毫無疑問，中共會利用呢種情況。我認為我哋必須非常警惕對依家發生嘅事情，因為呢啲係佢哋中共進行運作嘅方式。佢哋將會設立一個生產單位，佢哋會設立佢哋可以設立嘅任何組織，然後佢哋會利用佢嚟獲取情報，佢哋會出於自己嘅經濟目的，利用佢嚟獲得佢哋想要嘅。講明啲就係獲取同美國利益背道而馳嘅優勢。
我認為呢個比佢哋從事間諜活動更加弊。我認為間諜活動只係佔一小部分，佢哋將利用呢一個嚟發揮中共國嘅優勢。呢啲工廠對我哋嘅國家安全極為危險，唔應該被建造。
我關注嘅另一個問題係喺我哋嘅一啲法案裏邊，好似通膨消減法案，我哋美國會提供綠色能源稅收抵免，呢一間公司實際上可能會申請綠色能源稅收抵免，所以我哋實際上可能會提供美國納稅人嘅錢嚟資助一個項目。你對呢個問題有咩睇法呢？
係啊，我反對咁樣做。你舉咗一個好好嘅例子，一個非常公開嘅標誌性嘅例子。而家有幾十個同樣嘅事例喺度發生，而我向你保證，中共國冇喺度資助美國嘅公司，亦都冇喺中共國境內為美國嘅利益而行動。
We need to have very low expectations for the WTO. 2/3 of the members don't have to abide by the rules. LDCs, self-declared developing countries, Chinese system, the largest trader in the world, second largest economy in the world, their system is fundamentally at odds with WTO norms. So that's the WTO.
Today, 65% of U.S. trade is covered exclusively by WTO rules rather than any rules from our free trade agreements. Our farmers, ranchers, small businesses, and workers need strict enforcement of these rules to export competitively. Yet, the WTO is not without challenges. Negotiations for new trade agreements have stalled as a handful of spoiler countries veto progress on new ag market access or trade in environmental goods. Judicial activism by the WTO's appellate body has undermined confidence in the organization and degraded the ability of the U.S. to hold China accountable for its unfair practices. Many countries, especially China, either do not play by certain rules such as those requiring notification of subsidies, or in other cases engage in predatory, unfair, and anti-free market behavior outside the scope of the WTO's rules. All of these challenges come at a cost to American farmers, workers, and small businesses.